Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here, y'all, to talk about this Netflix Ultimatum episodes 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5. Can y'all believe it? Can y'all believe it? So I don't have to retitle my thumbnail or title my thumbnail for this show. Meltdowns and lowdown. Meltdowns because there was a lot of meltdown behavior and there was sure a lot of low down behavior going on. I can't believe it, y'all. Ugh. These folks is giving LA a bad name. LA is already known for being a bunch of flakes. And these folks up here is living up to the name. They done flaked out on the entire ultimatum, snuck out in the middle of the night. And then we got Nick sliding down the wall. Sliding down the wall. We got so much to talk about, y'all, but what I really want to talk about is not just what happened, but why it happened. What's really going on in the back of these folks' mind? And that's what I really want to talk about today. So first of all, we definitely got to talk about this thief in the night, dipping and diving out in the middle of the night. You know, once I saw it, I wasn't that surprised. I mean, I was surprised that they went through with it, but I wasn't surprised at the thought because I'm telling you, on episodes 1 and 2, when it comes to Chanel and Micah, I already knew Micah was having a really, really hard time. You could see it. When they had to split up, that man was darn near having a meltdown back then. And it looks like he couldn't even make it 2 nights. So they start showing how in the middle of the night, Micah is over here texting Chanel, basically saying, I need to see you. I need to meet you. So in the middle of the night, he's panicking. He's desperate. He's texting Michelle in the middle of the night. We're talking about 1:30 in the morning. It ain't in the middle of the night. It's darn near morning time. So next thing you know, at 1:30 in the morning, she's dipping and diving out. She's apologizing to Dave, who she's been paired up with for her trial marriage. And she's like, I'll be right back. I got to go somewhere. At 1:30 in the morning, Dave is like, where are you going at 1:30 in the morning? Next thing you know, she leaves at 1:30 in the morning, obviously to go meet Micah. And all they do is show her coming back at 8:30 in the morning. So between 1:30 and 8:30, these two have gone missing in action. Obviously, they was together. Obviously, they went back to their apartment or wherever else, their hotel, or sat in the car all night and talked. I don't know what they did, but we know they were together. And then next thing you know, Chanel and David done moved out of the places with their respective trial marriages. Moved out. They left at 1:30, came back at 8:30 in the morning. Next thing you know, they're packing their bags in the middle of the night, haven't told producers, haven't told their trial marriages or anything. Then if you think that ain't enough, because you're thinking, wow, look what Chanel and Micah did. And next thing you know who else did it? Dave and Vanessa. Dave and Vanessa did the same thing. They ended up telling us ultimatum in a little bit of blurb saying that in the middle of the night, these 4 were meeting secretly. Chanel, Micah, Dave, and Vanessa were all meeting secretly. And they all decided that they were going to leave. So next thing you know, Vanessa's packing her bags. Dave is turning off cameras because he's getting up out of there because he was another one that was panicking. Dave was panicking too. He was panicking over the fact that Vanessa looked like she was pairing real well with Nick. Well, here's what Dave didn't know. The situation with Vanessa and Nick was going bad. It was going real bad, real fast. Because once Vanessa started getting a whiff of how unstable Nick is and how his emotions are all over the place, Vanessa was already scared. Now, I believe that if Vanessa and Nick had gone well, it had been going well that night before, those 2 days before, I think Vanessa would have stayed because I think Vanessa was trying to prove a point. Remember, the purpose of this show was ultimatum, love me, marry me, or leave me, right? Marry me or break up. And it was Micah who didn't want to get married, and it was Dave who didn't want to get married right away. But it was Vanessa who wanted to, and it was Chanel who wanted to. And so Dave was afraid that Vanessa was really bonding with Nick because she was bonding with him initially. But once they got together, which we're going to talk about him later on, Vanessa, you could see the fear in her eyes. You could see the fear in Vanessa's eyes when she was talking to Nick. Nick was sliding down the wall all 3 episodes. He was having full-on meltdowns with the idea that his girl Sandy was going to be with this big old buff black dude, and that black dude was going to put it on him. Put it on her. That's what he was going to do. Put it on her, and Nick knew it. And he was having a hard time. So in the end, I think Vanessa wanted to leave. I know Dave wanted her to leave because Dave was afraid from the very beginning, but I don't think it took a lot of convincing for Vanessa because Vanessa saw the handwritings on the wall with Nick. And so she was ready to go too, ready to go. So everybody dipped and dived, everybody left. They didn't tell producers. So next thing you know, Nick is out. Nick is without a partner because remember, Nick was paired with Vanessa. She dips and dives out. So now he doesn't have a partner. And now Mariah, who was paired with Micah, is without a partner or trial marriage because Micah has dipped and dived out. This is what I want to say to the couples, the women, not necessarily the couples, but the women who dipped and dived. Not only did you dip and dive and you kind of like just left a lot of people hanging, this is kind of really flaky. This is like, I don't know. You say you're going to do something, you should do it. You kind of messed up the other couples. It's just a lot of part about it that I don't like. But the other part that I don't like is you got to remember why they came here in the first place. They came here because these men weren't ready to marry them. They weren't ready to marry them. And in the end, the men got scared. The men got scared that they were going to lose these women. And what they did was they secretly started texting the women to lure them back. Well, here's the thing. Do we believe that now these men are going to be scared straight? Do we think Micah, which we start to realize about Micah, he's very, very methodical, very, very methodical. And I mean, when he was having the conversation initially with Mariah, when they were first sort of sitting in the living room, his conversation was so dry. I mean, do we ever really see Micah smile? Maybe he was sad because he was about to lose, Chanel to another man. And he was crying. So I'm not saying he should be smiling all the time, but his face is always expressionless. He's talking about, how do you want to do the laundry? At that time, he couldn't really wait to see Chanel. He was just depressed. But this is what I want to say to the ladies. And I always say this to ladies, be careful about dating men for long, long periods of time without a promise of engagement or marriage. Okay, because men don't really need this much time. They don't. Micah, I think, is a person who really loves Chanel, but he's overly cautious. This goes back to what the old people used to say, why buy the milk when you get the cow for free? Once a woman has moved in with a man with no deadlines of marriage or engagement, once she's given up all the goodies, once she's performing all the duties of a wife, the men are in the best spot possible. The best spot possible, which means what is the incentive, right? And I'm not talking about playing games with men because I'm not into playing games. Games are tricks for kids. What's the little saying? Tricks are for kids. I'm not really into that. But what I am into is when you're in a relationship, even in marriage, there's a bit of negotiation that goes on even in marriage. People may call it compromise, but within compromise, there's also negotiation. When a woman moves in with a man with no deadline of that moving in, of when they're going to get married or engaged, she's given all of her negotiating power away. All of it. It's all gone. It's completely gone. She has none. So now what she's faced with is, even though she loves the man and wants to be with the man, does she continue to ride it out and wait on this man to be married? Or does she move on to another relationship to try to find what she's looking for? And what we know out here in the world is hard to find a person. So the woman is in a very, very, very tough spot because she's in love with the man. She wants to get married. He isn't ready to get married. Her biological clock is ticking. She's afraid to go back out in the world to meet a new person. And I don't really know. I can't really tell a person what to do. But what I can tell you is don't put yourself in a trick bag whereby now all of the things are so heavy on you, which is what here. Don't move in with a man unless within 6 months you're going to get engaged. But what you have to be willing to do, is pull the trigger. You have to be willing to call his bluff. You got to be willing to do it. See, these ladies, when they brought these men here to this show, they called the men's bluff. They said, put up or shut up. And guess what? Those men got scared. Though what these women really should have done was they should have stuck it out. They should have stuck it out. They really should have stuck it out and really let these men feel what it could feel like to possibly lose them. I mean, because you know what? I'm not into like tricking men or scaring men, but maybe that's what's needed. But what these women did was they folded. They folded real fast, real soon. Even if it wasn't anything what they wanted, they folded real fast, real soon. And there's something about negotiation. You've got to be willing. You've got to be willing to also suffer a little bit if you want to win a negotiation. Because marriage is negotiation. When to get married, how to get married. It's all negotiation. I mean, even when you're with your children, a kid can have a tantrum, a kid can fall out. What they could do is they're negotiating with you. What they're saying is, I'm going to act such a fool up in this store that you're going to be so embarrassed that I'm acting a fool that what will happen is you will give in to me and then I'll get what I want. Kids learn negotiation at a very, very young age. Whether you guys want to believe it or not, negotiation is part of any relationship, friendships, marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend. And when these ladies had these men at this ultimatum, they went into negotiation room and these men were cracking. They were folding. And what these women did was they let their foot off the neck of that man. They shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have done it. Because in the end, even if they still wanted to stay with the man, even if he didn't propose at the end, even if that's what they wanted, they still could have got that. These men would not have gone off with these other women. These men love these women. So people say, oh, it's a risk. It's a risk. Well, you came on the show. First of all, I wouldn't even come on the show. But now that you're on the show, don't give all your cards away. Because my question is now, are these men now going to propose to these women? Are they going to be getting married in the next 6 months? I don't know. Because now that the women folded, what other card can they play? They already played their big joker card. They went to the ultimatum. Boom, there it is, man. I'm going to play my big card. Are you going to match it? No, you know what they did? They folded. The women folded and gave all their cards back. You see, I always tell people engagements can also be long. You don't have to get engaged and get married in 6 months, but you do need to keep moving your relationship along. So if you're living with a guy for 2 years or 3 years or however long you've been together and you've been engaged and now you're living together, it's nothing wrong with saying, hey, after a year of living together, which I think is a good time, we're going to need to be engaged. We're going to need to be engaged. And which means we can be engaged. And during that year, we can be going to counseling. We could be going to therapy counseling. We could still be working things out in time for the marriage, which the marriage can take place within a year and a half. Engagement isn't just about planning a wedding. People think, oh, I get engaged. And then while I'm engaged, I'm using the entire year to plan for a wedding. Absolutely not. You don't have to do that. You can get engaged. You can spend a year also fortifying your relationship, going to counseling, working out through some things. Engagement just is a promise that I'm going to marry you and we're going to work through these issues together. So you might as well start practicing working through issues under the covering of an engagement. Under the covering of an engagement. Let's say things don't work out. Let's say that during that year when you're working things out, you discover more red flags or you're not compatible. Guess what you do? You call the engagement off. But a lot of women, they need the commitment. You shouldn't be living with a man for 3, 4, 5 years if you want to get married without any other more promises than what? What promises have these men given these women? And I think they lost. I think these women lost. I think they should have stuck it out. No matter how hard it would have been for them, I think it would have moved their men. Because these men were folding. Dave was folding and Michael was having a real hard time. Chanel and Dave already had a good setup. They really did, because they already went in knowing they weren't attracted to each other. They already went in knowing that the only reason we're doing this is to um, just be friends. There was not going to be anything that was going to go on between Dave and Chanel. Not at all. So Chanel really folded with Micah. Micah is so particular. He's so cautious, right? I really hope that Micah now steps up. I understand, like I said in my last video, that I think a lot of concerns of these couples, especially the men, I don't think Dave so much, but I think with Micah, Caleb got other concerns. We'll get to him. But Micah, for sure, I think it was a matter of financial stability between him and Chanel. I think Chanel's career was not stable. She just went from driving Uber to getting maybe more of a full-time gig in marketing. I think Micah is still trying to establish his own marriage. And I think what's happened to a lot of men is they've listened to this narrative. You got to be a provider, a protector. What's the things people talk about now? A protector, provider, and I don't know, whatever else. And so men are thinking that they need a whole lot of money to start off a marriage, right? That I need to come in and be able to provide all these things. Well, it's not always true. What marriage, the way you really move up in marriage is you work together as a partnership. Two hands are always better than one. Of course, you want to have the mentality as a man to be the protector and the provider and eventually get there. But if men delay marriage so long until they're there, then what will happen is the women have now sometimes gone past their own fertility age that they want. So I understand that Micah's younger and he wants time, but I don't know. This was wild, y'all. This was really wild. And I think in the end, the people who really lost the most by cutting this short, I think are the ladies. That's just what I think. I think it's the ladies. I think these ladies gave away a lot of their negotiation power. And marriage is negotiation. In marriage, it's negotiation. Everything on your job is negotiation. In friendships, everything is about negotiation, because you're always not going to want the same thing at the same time, which means there's going to have to be compromise and there's going to have to be negotiation. But the negotiation, you want it to be a win-win for both partners, but it still takes negotiation. And to be able to negotiate, you have to be able to bring things to the table that are worth negotiation over. And both people have to have an incentive to negotiate. If a person doesn't have an incentive to negotiate, a lot of people won't negotiate. And what these men look at is, well, I've got the woman, I'm getting all the goodies. Like I said, why buy the cow when the milk is for free? And I'm not telling women to withhold everything from men, but you got to leave some negotiation power. I don't know what it's going to be. You got to leave something. I'm not telling you what to use to negotiate with, but you need something to negotiate with, and you got to know what that is. But if you give it all away, you give all your negotiation power away, then you're going to be in trouble. You're going to really, really be in trouble, because you might be where these ladies are, sitting here begging men to marry them. And the men are thinking, why? Why do I need to do it? But we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to talk about some of these other couples. Some of the other couples. Let's get right into talking about Sandy and JR and also Nick. Good Lord. First of all, JR is doing nothing but trying to have interracial intercourse with Sandy, and Sandy is doing the same thing. This is really what this is about. JR is saying that he has never dated a Caucasian lady or a white girl. And I don't really know if I believe JR. It doesn't really matter anyway. But JR is giving me this type of a person where in one way he wants to act like he was raised as a PK kid and he's this nice person and all of this. But on the other way, JR is really kind of like shady boots. Really, really shady boots. And he leads with a lot of sexual energy. And I keep telling Zena through this mic that if she believes this is the first time that JR has behaved like this with another woman, Zena is purely mistaken. You look at JR's moves. You look at how comfortable he is giving Sandy massages on her shoulders when they're talking, constantly touching her. And what JR wants us to believe is this is the first time he's ever done it, and he's just good at it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. They're out there in the pool, having drinks, Sandy's in her thong bikini, and JR's like, "Oh, you so sexy." I mean, JR must tell Sandy she's sexy every 3 minutes. But yet, when we talk about Zena, he never really says that to Zena because Zena talks about it. You see, what I think JR is, you say, well, why is JR with Zena, but also so much liking Sandy? Because I think that JR is really a really big freak. That's what I believe he is. And I believe that he is attracted to freak women. He said that he married a woman that cheated on him. More than likely, and he also tells us later on in the episode that his wife was very, very beautiful. So if we just go ahead with what JR said, he married a woman that was very, very beautiful. He married a woman that cheated on him. I believe that JR likes women who are sexually expressive, who like a little bit of risk, right? Who are attractive. He has a type. And that type of woman that he likes became a woman that cheated on him. And when you look at Sandy, Sandy's the same woman. She's a woman that likes risk. She's a woman that likes excitement. And she's a woman that's willing to sort of cheat on Nick. Because Nick, this may be a trial marriage, but this is, like they said, a hall pass. She's willing to cheat on her boyfriend. So really, JR, who's the man who says he's scarred and he's scorned from a cheating wife, really is up here pairing up with a woman who's also willing to cheat on her boyfriend. And then what I think JR does in Zena is I think Zena is the opposite. I actually think Zena is a little bit, and even we're going to get to Scotty, he starts talking about it. Zena's a little bit more in control. She might be borderline boring. She might not be as adventurous. Remember, Zena was the one that said JR gave her her first orgasm, which means she may not be as sexually expressive as JR likes. So JR is over here with Sandy because Sandy is really the type of woman that JR likes because that's who JR is. I know JR wants to act like he's not, but that's who JR is. He likes to live on the wild side. He likes to flirt. He likes to do all these things, but he's afraid of that woman in terms of marrying that woman because he got cheated by that woman. You see, so when he goes back out and he looks for a new woman, he picks a Zena. Zena wants to be at home cooking meals, raising kids. She wants to be a wife, right? She doesn't want to be out in these streets, running around the streets. She doesn't want to do any of these things. And JR likes that because with Zena, JR feels like, wow, at least I know that she's not going to cheat on me. He feels safe and secure with Zena. But the inside of JR hungers for a Sandy. See, JR might have gotten rid of that ex-wife, but the hunger for that type of woman is still in JR. You see, so even if he were to ever get with the Zena, he probably won't get with Zena because he's afraid to pull the trigger with Zena because he knows, I don't know if I can live this life for the rest of my life. I really do like the wild side. I do like the risque side. But with that risque woman, that wild woman, I run the risk that that woman will cheat on me. So what do? Do I get the safe woman like a Zena, who I know would never cheat on me or more than likely won't cheat on me? Or do I still go back with a woman like my ex-wife and this Sandy lady who I know there's a risk with? So here on this show, you got them in the pool talking about, why don't you come over here and warm me up? Warm me up. These two, they end up going back to the room, their apartment. And at this moment, I think these two humped. They humped in the bedroom. And it became pretty obviously that that's what they was doing up in there. And I think it was more than a kiss. So when Sandy is talking about whether or not they should explain to their partners that, that they've kissed, JR is like, don't tell Zena that. Don't tell Zena that at all, because I don't think that JR has any intentions on staying with Sandy long term. Because what he knows about Sandy is so much like his ex-wife. There would be no way that he would marry a Sandy, because what he's saying is Sandy actually brings the same risk that his ex-wife did. The difference between right now is he's on the other side of the cheating. He's the one that the wife is cheating with, because Sandy's cheating on Nick. And JR is willing to be that person to Sandy. But in the end, there's no way that JR would want to be with Sandy, because he would be too triggered by it. He's too afraid to be with a Sandy. Even though his body wants a Sandy, all her risqueness, all her on the wild side, he's too afraid of the outcome of being with a Sandy, like what happened with him and his ex. So when Sandy starts talking about maybe she ought to talk to JR and talk to Nick and tell him what's going on, or even talk to Zena, JR says, oh, absolutely not, because I don't want any of this to get back to Zena. None of it. Later on, we see JR telling Zena that, when they get back together, that they kissed once or twice. Boy, you did way more than kissing. You did way more than kissing. But next thing you know, this is around the time that we see Nick sliding down the wall, y'all. He's losing it, because at this point in time now, his partner is gone. Vanessa's gone. He's all alone. And you're starting to see why Sandy does not want to marry Nick. You're really starting to see why Sandy does not want to marry Nick. I was wondering what was going on with these two. What was going on? We knew Sandy was, like he said, she still wants to Coachella. And Nick wants to leave the city life and he wants to move to suburban life. Well, now we know why Nick wants to move to suburban life, because he wants to get Sandy, his wild child, his wild woman, out of the city and into suburbia, because Nick is afraid that what Sandy is doing with JR right now, Nick is afraid that Sandy's going to do that in the streets of LA. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get Sandy to get out of the environment of the urbanness of LA with the clubs and the hot men, and he's trying to move her out to suburbia so that she will calm down. Nick is trying to turn wild Sandy into a housewife, and Sandy ain't having it. She's not having it at all. I know Nick is an artist, and he was up there painting that art like a wild man with all those strong brush strokes on that painting. It was getting kind of scary. All those dark paint marks in black. It was really, really scary. But I really don't know what type of living Nick wants to live in terms of financially. And I don't know if he makes enough money being an artist or whatever else he does. Someone mentioned down that she thinks that Nick has a little bit of money stashed away. I don't know. Maybe he does. But I do know that Sandy's not interested in living way out in those suburbs. Definitely not. She may go to Coachella. But she's not interested in living out there in that area, 365 days of the year. Absolutely not. No, she's not. So Nick is over here constantly calling JR and Sandy, trying to talk to Sandy, and JR is getting hot with it. He's getting really hot with it. He doesn't want Nick to mess up what's going on with him and Sandy. Later on, we see JR get really, really nasty with Nick. Really, really nasty to the point of it. I thought that JR was really out of line. I did. I thought that I understood where he didn't want Nick doing what he was doing, but I thought JR was very, very disrespectful. Very, very disrespectful. But there comes a time when JR is meeting up with Scotty as well. They're at sort of this like dinner or the men's meet up, and he's talking to Scotty, and JR basically said he was really okay with his girl going off with Scotty. That's what he said. He said he's really okay with his girl going off with Zena. Zena really needs to watch this show back and realize what JR is doing. JR is using Zena as a placeholder. JR is using Zena to heal, because JR has been scorned by a woman that cheated on him. And so he is using Zena as a placeholder, a safe placeholder. But it's not really what he wants, but he's too afraid to be with a woman like a Sandy. He really wants to be a woman like a Sandy, like his ex-wife, but he's afraid of that. So when he's real comfortable with Zena going over here with Scotty, it's really, really odd. It is really, really odd to see. And he talks about that one of the things that he likes with Sandy is that with he and Zena, they really don't do a lot of cooking together. But with Sandy, they seem to be doing a lot of cooking together. And he likes to step up and help. Well, here's what I'm thinking. We already see Zena cooking for Scotty. So we know Zena doesn't mind cooking. She wants to be this housewife. So when I hear JR saying he doesn't cook with Zena, I got to ask myself, well, who's not doing the cooking? We already know that JR said that he eats a very regimented meal in order to keep himself in shape. He's learned like his macros and all this other kind of stuff. But why is he willing to be in the kitchen with Sandy, but he isn't willing to cook with Zena? Because Zena does it for him already. You see, just like Zena's over here cooking for Scotty, and Scotty ain't doing shit, we're going to get to that too. Zena does that same thing and does everything on her own independently with JR. So JR doesn't have to do anything. JR doesn't have to do anything with Zena. Nothing. Nothing at all. And we're going to start talking about Scotty and Zena too. She does that same thing with Scotty. Scotty doesn't have to do anything. He's not cooking. He's not cleaning. He's not doing a lot of things. And what Zena wants to do is she wants to be this wife so badly. She tries to fulfill the role of wife so soon that she gives the man all the qualities of a wife so soon, but the man hasn't had to do anything. Zena rewards the man of all these sort of wife qualities so far up front that they don't really have to do anything to earn it or even keep it. So all of a sudden now we got JR in the kitchen helping Sandy, because I bet Sandy told him, I'm not doing all this cooking by myself, because I bet that in the household of Sandy and Nick does a lot of the cooking. You see, when you look at the dynamics of the relationship, Sandy with Nick is much more of a caretaker. Nick is much more of a person who's really emotional, probably really over nurturing of Sandy. She's used to sitting back and being able to maybe get this caretaking from Nick in some ways. But in other ways, we know that Nick is an emotional wreck. So what Sandy's burden is in the relationship between Nick and Nick. So what Sandy's burden in the relationship with Nick is more about is because Nick is an emotional wreck. And so there's a lot of emotional weight and responsibility that Sandy has to have with Nick. When you see Nick's breakdowns, you see Sandy getting stressed out. You see her almost becoming like reclusive because she's getting triggered by Nick's meltdown, which means he's had them before. She has to coddle Nick's feelings so much that I believe it's become a burden to Sandy. I think it really is. One thing about Sandy, she might be risque, she might be out there, but one thing I see that she's doing, not only with JR, she does it with Nick, is she carries a lot of the emotional weight of a relationship. And even with Nick, him even being older, he's almost like a young child. She's got to coddle him in a lot of ways. And I think that is a heavy burden for Sandy. Later on, Mariah even tells Sandy, I know now why you don't want to marry Nick. He's not marriage material. So now we've seen Vanessa run away from Nick because she realized it. Mariah, who's only spent a little bit of time with Nick, realized he's not marriage material. Sandy knows it too. So why is Sandy with Nick? Why is Sandy with Nick? Is it about money? Is it about there's like a codependency? Because one thing I see about Sandy is Sandy does like to teach and coach. Sandy has made herself the teacher of JR. She went over here and told Zena, what I'm really doing is I'm preparing JR for you so that he'll be a better husband or mate for you. But I'm going to sleep with him in the meantime. I really don't think Sandy and JR want to be together in the long term. I really don't. I think that Sandy likes to be the emotional leader, but it also can become a burden to her. I do think that she realizes the scornness, the woundedness of JR. I think she looks at herself in JR's life as, I'm going to be the one to make him a better man, make him open up emotionally. I think she also thinks she's the woman that could heal Nick, because Nick has got a lot of problems. Sandy looks at herself as this person that's going to come in and heal Nick and also heal JR. She thinks she's a healer. She thinks she can fix men, right? But in that trying to fix men, I think it's a burden in Sandy's life. It's a real big burden, because I picked up on it when we saw Nick starting to have a meltdown. I saw the facial expression of Sandy, and she was unhappy. She looked like she was being triggered. And what I think is that in the relationship with JR and Zena, Zena is the one doing a lot of the caretaking of JR. Absolutely. That's what I believe. And so now he's over here, they're cooking. He says, oh, do you want to pray over the food? They're praying over the food. He starts talking about he wants 3 kids. And he wants these children by the time that he's 40. Now, remember, JR is only 33 years old. He wants to start having kids by the age of 40. That's 7 more years that he wants to really start having more children. Which means, Zena, when do you think he wants to even get married to start having children? His timeline don't even add up. You're talking about 7 years? Because what JR is trying to do is he's trying to get his money right. JR knows that he's an entrepreneur. He runs his fitness business, but he does not have the financial means at this point to take care of a wife and 3 kids. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to establish himself a little bit longer. So but by the time he's in his late 30s or whatever, he can start having kids. But by the time he's in his late 30s, that means Zena will be in her late 30s. She can't start having 4 kids if that's what they really want when she's in her late 30s. She can't do that. Like I said, Zena is a placeholder for JR. She is a placeholder. She is a safe space to land while he figures out who he really wants to be with and what he wants to do. Because right now, he likes the safety and security of Zena being there. But in the end, I'm not for sure Zena is really the woman he wants. I don't think so. I know he got spooked. He got scared by that ex-wife. But inside, that wild, more adventurous, more risk-taking woman, that's who JR really, really wants. But things start getting really, really bad with Nick. He really starts stalking Sandy. When Sandy and JR are out on the balcony having dinner, eating dinner, Nick is down below looking up at the balcony, watching all this other kind of stuff. You got Sandy over here still falling into the same old thing Zena did, saying, hey, do you have some laundry you want me to do? What? You doing the laundry of JR? All these women doing all these wife type things for men that you're in a trial marriage to? Boy, I tell you, no negotiating power, none, giving it all away. And then they start having this really weird conversation that really tells you who JR is. And they start talking about, what are your feelings around social media? And JR comes up with a rule that he doesn't believe that men need to post their women on social media, but women should post their men. So wait a minute. So women should post their men on social media, but men should not be obligated to post their women. That's because JR doesn't want to post his woman because he's a personal trainer. And the way that a lot of these personal trainers get clients are from women who have secret dreams of being with these personal trainers. And why would they want to post their wife or their girlfriend? And that would repel customers when really what he's trying to do is attract customers. So he's come up with this weird thing that, yeah, women need to post their significant others, but men shouldn't be obligated to do it. Okay. He said he found out that his ex was cheating by going through her cell phone. So the way he wants to fix all that is he says, I don't think we should share passwords. Wait a minute. So you found out that your ex cheated by going through her phone because at that time you were sharing passcodes. But to fix that, now you tell me you don't want to share passcodes because what? You can't trust yourself to not go through her phone, so you don't want the passcode? No, because it goes back to what I said before. I don't believe that JR didn't cheat. I believe he cheated. Now, when his wife got on some get back, that's what I believe the wife did. I think the wife got on some get back. I think what JR does is he does exactly what he's been doing with Sandy. He heavily flirts. He heavily pets. He does a lot of things. He may say that he never stuck his ding-a-ling in the vagina of a woman, but he might have done everything else under the sun. And what our wife said was, that's cheating. He could have had an emotional relationship on social media. He could have been liking other women's pictures. He could have been commenting. He could have been flirting. And what that wife looked at as, that's cheating. And so what she did was said, if you can cheat like that, I can cheat like that. And then what I'll do is I'll go over here and cheat, and I'll cheat worse than you. And now all of a sudden, JR believes his wife cheated. No, you cheated too. You cheated too. Because let's say that I'm wrong. Let's say he and Sandy haven't done the wild thing. Let's say they really haven't, done the Humpty dance. Well, everything that they're doing to me would cause me to get upset. To me, is a whole lot of other cheating he's doing with Sandy. So if JR doesn't consider what he's doing cheating right now, more than likely he did this with other women when he was married. And he told his wife, hey, that I didn't really cheat. And that wife said, no, yes, you did. That's cheating. So since you cheated, I'm going to go ahead and cheat. And then what happened is JR can dish it, but he couldn't take it. And what that wife did was she got on some good get back. And when she got on that get back, then he divorced her because he could dish it, but he can't take it. Just like with social media. Just like with social media. That's why it's a double standard. Oh, she should post me, but I don't have to post her. Double standard. I don't want to share passwords because I really don't want her going to my phone, seeing women in my DMs and what I'm talking to them about. I don't really want her to see that. This is not here to protect the woman. All these rules he have, this is here to protect him. To protect him. And you know what? He ended up meeting Sandy's mother. And in meeting Sandy's mother, man, you see how Sandy got how she is, because when Sandy's mom met JR, even the mom was flirting with JR. But here's JR laying it on thick, talking about love at first sight, and they share everything, and he's not used to it. Why aren't you used to sharing everything? He acts like he's not used to sharing everything because Zena doesn't share. That's not who's not sharing. It's JR. JR isn't sharing. He don't even want to share his passwords to his phone. He don't want to share his food because, like he said, he has to eat different type of macros. He doesn't even want to share cooking. He don't even want to share the laundry. He was good with Sandy doing the laundry. JR's talking about all this new stuff he's doing with Sandy, but the reason he wasn't doing it in the past is because he had Zena over here doing everything. Like I said, giving all the milk away for free. Why buy the cow? Why buy the cow? Ugh, this is horrible. This is really, really horrible. And the more I saw of JR's character was when Nick had his real meltdown and he came to the apartment and was banging on the door of the apartment with JR and Sandy. And Sandy's afraid to darn near come out the room. She's stressed because she's seen the meltdown of Nick. She's seen it before. She knows that he's an emotional wreck, and she's tired of always having to carry the emotional weight between the two. She always has to be so strong and carry someone else, right? Like she's trying to carry JR now in this relationship. She tries to carry Nick. And JR is over here talking about, well, maybe the grass is greener on the other side over here with Sandy. Ugh. But in this meltdown that Nick was having, JR becomes big man, goes to the door, stops Nick. Nick starts getting upset, talking about, that's my girl in there. That's my girl. You don't know my girl. And what does JR say? I do know your girl. I really know your girl. That was wrong, JR. That was wrong. It was wrong on so many levels. First of all, here's another hypocritical statement by JR. Now, remember, when Sandy wanted to tell Zena and Nick what type of intimacy she and JR might have had, JR said, no, don't say nothing about it at all, because he didn't want to get exposed to Zena. But then when all of a sudden, when Nick comes to the door and is having a meltdown and is knocking on the door, who is the one talking about how well he knows Sandy? And when he says how well, he wasn't talking about no friendship. He was saying, oh, I know her. I really do know her. He was basically trying to tell Nick, I had your woman. And you know what? That's bad character, because he didn't need to stick the knife in Nick's heart like that. He saw Nick having a full-on heart meltdown. And what he decided to do was tell Nick, get the F out of here, and stick the neck further in his chest. You know, Sandy can handle her own, man. He acted as if Nick was going to come in there and cause bodily harm to Sandy. That's not what Nick was doing. But JR decided to insert himself and says, leave us the F alone. Get out of here. And really, I'm telling you, really punk Nick. He really, really did punk Nick. And Nick was sliding down the wall. Earlier, Nick was crying in the bed, curled up in the fetal position. It was horrible to watch. But what was more even horrible to watch was to watch who JR is. JR tries to lead with all this charm and like he's a PK kid and he's so nice. But deep down inside, he's a snake. He really is a snake. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. But then we're going to move on and we're going to start talking about how JR's woman, Zena, is over here with Scotty. Good Lord. I told y'all Scotty was... I told y'all something was wrong with Scotty, and he showed a lot more of it now on this episode. And like I said, Zena is over here cooking for him, cleaning for him, doing all this wife stuff. Scotty ain't doing nothing but sitting there. He ain't helping her cook. He ain't helping her clean up the kitchen. He's doing nothing. Even when they go out to dinner, he don't pull the chair out for her. Scotty don't do nothing. Nothing. We're going to learn a lot about Scotty through Aria. Forget about what Scotty is even telling you. Like I always said, don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. And Scotty don't do nothing for Zena. You know, he's selfish. One of the things he's asked Zena about is, will you want to go back to the East Coast, you know, if we're together? And because he wants to stay in LA because his family's in LA. So what he's already saying is, I just want to make sure you're not no woman that's going to want to make me leave my family here in LA, because I'm not leaving my family. So you're going to have to be the woman that wants to stay here in LA, because I'm not going to move out of state for you. That's fine. But he's letting it be known, Scotty ain't going to do too much for a woman. Not too much for all. A lot of what Zena talks about, and even Scotty picked on, was says, Zena masked a lot of her emotions because when she was with JR, and that's because she's too busy trying to please JR. She's too busy trying to be a wife to JR and give everything JR needs so that JR will want to marry her. And in doing that, she's actually denying who she really is. So the mask that she has on is a mask to be who she thinks JR wants her to be so that he will want to marry her. But in the end, guess what, Zena? Even what you're masking to be is not what JR wants. JR wants a more wilder woman. And we find out that you're not that wild. Like you said, you just had your first orgasm with JR. And now we have Scotty over here. And Scotty's starting to pick up on some vibes that you're really not open to a lot of different things. You're kind of closed-minded. You're kind of buttoned up. You know, I first saw Scotty getting a little triggered by Zena when she was beating him in basketball. He wasn't taking it well. He wasn't taking it well that Zena was knocking down those jump shots on him and he was missing everything. And you saw the irritation in Scotty. He didn't like the idea that Zena was beating him. You see this rage in Scotty that really just kind of bubbles up to the top. And later on, I'm going to talk about how a lot of it is talked about by Aria. That's why Aria likes Caleb so much, because Caleb is so gentle and soft. And even though Scotty wants to act like he's this caring and loving guy, Scotty is, I think he might be a narcissist, y'all. He's something else. He tells this story that he got a speeding ticket. And when his dad was trying to discipline him and tell him about not speeding and all this other kind of stuff, his dad said that he loved him. So maybe after the dad was sort of disciplining him over getting a speeding ticket or chastising him or whatever else, the dad still told Scotty, I love you. But yet, Scotty said what he purposely did was not tell his dad back that he loved him because he was angry. He was vengeful. He wanted to get back at his dad. And then what happened? The next day, his dad passed away. Maybe his dad had a heart attack. So the vengefulness, the get back in Scotty, the anger in Scotty was so much that he was willing to punish his dad in this way. And in the end, his dad died. And so now what he says is he beats himself up that the last time that he talked to his dad was a time in which he was punishing his father, because that's really what he does. And I think that's who Scotty is. I think Scotty is a punisher. And he says he knows that it probably comes from his childhood because he was overindulged. It sounds like he was. It sounds like when I talk about negotiation and how kids learn how to negotiate very early on, it sounds like Scotty learned early on to use withholding and anger and nastiness to get what he wants. It sounds like what Scotty did was the way I'll get you to give in to me is I'll be nasty and rude and cry. You see, when you're a baby, you just cry and you yell and you shout for your parents to give in to you. But thing is, you get older, you may start still yelling, but you start developing other techniques to try to manipulate people to give you what you want. And you see that in Scotty. Scotty is a manipulator, and you can see that he gets very upset when he doesn't get his way. He's not really a giver at all. He's a taker. That's why he's willing to sit back and let Zena do all this work. That's why he was so upset when Zena was beating him in basketball. You know, when Zena was over here plating DoorDash. And what did Scotty do? First of all, Zena, it's admirable that you were plating DoorDash. Very wife-like. Very, very wife-like. Once again, delivering wife-like duties to a man who's a trial husband. And then when she was plating it to do something nice, you had Scotty over here making fun of her. Look at you plating DoorDash. It was really an underhanded nastiness to it. It was no thank you or thank you, this is so nice. It was almost like putting her down in a lot of ways. Like, why are you doing something as silly as plating DoorDash? Like I said, Scotty is mean and he's demeaning. That's why you got Ari over there feeling the way that she does. Because Scotty's mean. He really is mean. You know, one of the times Ari is talking to Caleb, and she starts talking about that she has a challenging relationship with Scotty because Scotty always has to have the last word and always be right. If you really want to know who Scotty is, you learn Scotty through Ari because she's revealing a lot about him. A lot about him. And what he says he likes about Zena over Aria is that Zena hasn't had a lot of the life experiences that Aria has. Aria sees the red flags in Scotty. She sees them. That's why she's not ready to marry him. That's why she's willing to live in the Bay Area while he lives in California. But what he's saying is, I like Zena because she don't see my red flags because she never really dealt with no one like me. Zena is Zaria. Zena is not on guard, but Aria is on guard because Aria has seen this behavior before because she's dealt with men like Scotty. And that's what Scotty doesn't want. Scotty doesn't want to be with a woman that peeps him out and sees him. But that's the woman, they need to see him. They really do need to see him. It's so interesting that when Zena went and met with her family and introduced her family to Scotty, the sister of Zena said, I really like JR. And she said she would be sad if he and JR would break up because JR presents really, really well. The thing with JR is he has a nice smile and demeanor here, but behind closed doors, JR is sneaky. He's very, very sneaky. This is the thing about JR. He knows how to put on the front. Maybe he learned this in the preacher's world because in the world of preaching, when you grow up as a preacher's kid, you have to act a certain way, even though you're not really that person, because the church and the religion is governing your behavior on the outside, but behind closed doors, you're a different person. JR is used to presenting one person and being another person. And maybe that's what Zena's sister sees. She sees JR as representative. But they're all surprised that Zena is so fast over here talking about she might even say no to JR. If JR came back right now and said he wanted to get married, she would say no. Girl, you ain't going to say no because you're going to start to realize just how crazy Scotty is. So you shouldn't say no to no Scotty. Absolutely not. You definitely should not be saying yes to no Scotty. Scotty's crazy. He is crazy. But with Scotty, she's saying she can talk more about her feelings because with JR, she's got to be all more about what he wants. That's the problem. This is why Zena shrinks with JR, because she's so busy trying to please JR to get a proposal out of JR. She's really, really losing who she is. There's one thing about compromising. There's one thing about blending with a person, but there's also a thing is going too far. And I think what Zena has done in her relationships is she's going too far. She's putting so much effort into pleasing the man and being what that man wants. She's actually losing who she is. And that's not healthy. That's not really healthy. She tries to get Scotty to be more involved. She says, hey, we got some work to do. We need to organize these closets because I guess the place is a mess. We need to sort of clean up around here. And what does Scotty do? He don't budge. He ain't doing no work. So once again, we got Zena over here about to organize a whole closet for this man. Girl, why buy the cow when the milk is free? Now we got Zena over here giving milk for free to both Scotty and JR. Girl, you got to be tired. You got to real be tired. But we really start to see more of Scotty when he starts deciding he's going to plan some dates for them. And he throws out some suggestions to Zena about how about going on a hot air balloon ride? How about doing some cryotherapy? And Zena turns both things. She goes, well, I don't really like hot air balloons, maybe because it's too high. And I really don't want to do the cryotherapy because it's too cold. And all of a sudden, you see that heckle and jive of Scotty and comes across and he says, well, what do you want to do? Just go out to have dinner? Basically, do you just want to have boring dates and go to dinner and have missionary sex? Is that what you want to do? Because, yeah, that's kind of who Zena is. I think that is who she is. And instead of just learning about Zena, what he does is he gets offended because he doesn't get his way. You see, I keep going back to he wants his way. And when she said no to him, he's a man that doesn't want to be told no. He wants his way. It's just like Arya said, he's got to have the last word. He's got to have his way. And next thing you know, he's verbally attacking Zena. And she doesn't bite back. She doesn't bite back at all. She's very, very calm about it. You could tell that she's not an argumentative person. But the way that he spoke to her and the things that he was saying to her, you know, he says, I have a problem with rejection. And maybe it's because when I was younger, I got so much validation. Yeah, when you were younger, you got coddled. When you were younger, you weren't told no. So you grew up in the world thinking that everyone should give you everything you want, when you want it, how you want it. And now this is how you're behaving in a relationship because you got to have it your way. I mean, she was eating dinner. He was like, did you just eat without me? I mean, it was so scary, the look that he gave her. And she said, oh, I figured you already ate without me. Well, you figured wrong. That's just some nastiness right there. That's just some nastiness right there. You could see it in him. And this is the kind of stuff that you know now that Arya has seen in him. That's why she don't want to marry him. That's why she don't want to move to LA. You see what it is. Scotty do a whole lot of talking in the beginning, pretending like he's this nice guy. But in the end, his personality is volatile. It's volatile and it's nasty. Ugh, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Arya's over here with Caleb, and I know that they're getting this bond together because they're not really sexually attracted to each other. I think they're building more of an emotional connection because they're seeing in each other what they don't like in their other mates. And what Arya is attracted to in Caleb is his kindness, his sweetness, his nurturing. He's constantly doing things for Arya, all the opposite of Caleb. All the opposite of Scotty. Scotty is abrasive. He doesn't do anything for her. He doesn't make her feel secure. He's very highly critical. Caleb is the opposite. And Caleb is also used to doing this in his relationship with Mariah. Mariah is codependent on Caleb. Mariah doesn't even really know who she is. She tells the story of how she was abandoned by her mother. That explained a lot because you can see the way she attaches to Caleb. And Caleb likes Aria because Aria is her own woman, and she's not so dependent on Caleb. But Caleb likes to be a nurturer, but he doesn't want a woman that drains him like Mariah does. Mariah drains Caleb. She absolutely drains Caleb. It's a big burden for Caleb. Caleb is almost to Mariah like Sandy is to Nick. He's the emotional grounding. And what he likes about Aria is it feels a little bit lighter. It doesn't feel as a bit heavy. They're not even sleeping in the same bed. They're having these deep emotional connections. But Aria isn't physically attracted to Caleb, but she says she's become emotionally attracted to him. But in the end, I don't think that these two will be together because I don't even think that Caleb is physically attracted to Aria. I think they both think each other, they're cute, they're handsome, they're good looking, but I still don't see any really big sexual connection, but I could see how they have a deep emotional connection. And sometimes with women, emotional connection can turn into something physical. But for the most part, a lot of what they have is a deep emotional connection. And Caleb talks about, he doesn't like that when he asks Mariah, what is it that you like about me? She says, I just have blind faith in our relationship. And what Caleb says is that's not solid enough. You're just going off of a feeling. And he wants a more deeper connection. And almost it's like Mariah is with Caleb out of fear. It's not a proactive feeling. It's a reactive. It's like, I'm with you out of fear because I'm afraid to be alone. That's Mariah. It's not I'm okay being alone, but I choose to be with you because even though I'm strong alone, I can be stronger with you. That's what Caleb likes about Aria. That's really what he likes. No one likes a completely independent woman, right? A lot of women try to be so independent they don't need a man. A man wants you to need them and want to be with them, but a man doesn't want you to be so dependent on them that you'll just crumble if they're not able to be there in one particular moment. And I think that's what Caleb feels with Mariah, that she's too dependent on him emotionally, too dependent. And when I look at Aria and I think, why is Aria with Scotty? Why hasn't she pulled the plug? You start to learn a little bit more about Aria, that her parents had an open relationship. Because in a lot of ways, I'm like, Aria, isn't that kind of almost what you're setting up with Scotty? It's the fact that you live in San Francisco and he lives in LA. It's not necessarily an open relationship, but a lot of ways you're in two different cities. And she said she would see her father with other women. And so that made her not trust men. But in a lot of ways, that distance she saw with her mother and her father with an open relationship, she's almost sort of creating that sort of distance with her and Scotty. I think that also feeds into it. There's a moment when Caleb goes out and he shops for tea for Aria. And Aria says, what I like about Caleb is when he goes to the store and he goes to get me some tea, he doesn't really know what type of tea I like. So he'll get 3 chai teas. And what she's saying is that feels so good to her because you know who's not going out and getting her no tea or doing nothing? Scotty. He don't do shit for her. Nothing. She talks about how Scotty's argumentative. He likes to get the word in. And she likes Caleb because he listens and he talks calmly. It's the small things that Caleb does that makes Aria feel appreciated. And what she's going to realize is Scotty is none of that. Scotty is none of that. Why is she with Scotty? I think it's for the physical. I think physically, Scotty has the physical looks of what Aria likes, but the insides is Caleb. She even sits in front of Caleb and tells Caleb, I sure wish Scotty could be like you. Because physically, she likes what Scotty looks like. But the insides, she really wished that Scotty was more like Caleb. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. I know Scotty says he likes Zena because he likes a lot more physical touch than Aria does. And Aria says that she's not used to a lot of physical touch. But Scotty also isn't a safe space because can you imagine having a physical touch with a person? The next thing you know, he's snapping at you, talking bad about you. It doesn't want to make you want to come in closer because even Arya is saying, because of the demeanor of Caleb, the fact that he's so nurturing and kind, it makes her want to have more physical touch with him because the personality draws her in. Scotty's personality is abrasive. So even Arya, who already has a problem with physical touch, she doesn't feel more drawn into Scotty because Scotty's not a safe place. So Scotty really isn't going to help Arya become more of a physical touch woman because he's not a safe space. It's probably part of the reason why she's with him too, because she's drawn to that separateness. She's drawn to that, like her parents were, open relationships, not really having this deep bond. These two shouldn't be together. Arya should not be with Scotty. I really hope that they don't get back together. I mean, none of these couples should really be back together at the end of this. Everyone should say goodbye to each other. Everyone should say goodbye. The only couple I think that should go ahead would be Micah and Chanel. Micah needs to go ahead and propose to Chanel. Dave needs to go ahead and propose to Vanessa because I really don't know what's holding him up. Sandy should leave Nick. Arya and Scotty should break up, and Zena and JR should break up. That's what I think. That's what I think for all of them. But anyway, that's all I got for these episodes. We'll be back for the rest of the season when they drop it, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.